Soul Grows in Israel, a podcast where we ask the questions about ancient Jewish wisdom, modern life, and everything in between. So let's ask, let's have fun, and let's grow together. Hey guys, and welcome to a Purim episode of A Soul Grows in Israel. Yes, if you're watching me on YouTube, you might be thinking, what is this fool up to now? I am in full costume. Okay, not full, but I am in my Snow White interpretation of things. And it's not because I'm obsessed with getting dressed up. Purim is something quite deep to me. I don't run to masquerades. I think that when you connect to the energy of the day and to a costume you're feeling at the moment, it is telling. And I like to be curious and find out, why am I dressing up this way? Well, I know why, and I want to share all of it with you. And if you ever notice kids dressing up like they're superheroes, it's aspirational, or something very witty, or it's not always coming from the best of places maybe, but it's always telling. And if you have a question mark and say, why am I dressing up like this? You start to open up a book of self-understanding. So pay attention, because things get interesting. My full name is Esther Malka, and I have been told by a mikubal, that's sort of, I guess you can say it's a human who has or claims to have a touch of Ruach HaKodesh, like a spirit of knowledge and intuition. And my grandmother, God rest her soul, before I got engaged, she asked me to go see one with him. And I said, yes, ma'am. She was like a second mom to me. So if I thought it was absurd, it didn't matter. Like, yeah, definitely. I'm game. Let's see what's up. And one of the things he said to me was, your name is Esti. It was spelled like Estee Lauder. There were 5 Esties in my class. It fit me. And I was like, I like my name. Esther and Esther Malka it didn't speak to me. And there were 2 people in my life who called me Esther Malka. And this man told me, when you drop the resh, the end, the Esther, you lose something. And I put that away, and I just continued on for 10 years. 10 years later, I moved to a new neighborhood, and I figured, okay, let's try this Esther out. And anyone who called me Esti before, carry on. I didn't make anyone change it. I wasn't about that to this day. Like, if you knew me before 2005, I'm Esti. And after, I introduced myself as Esther. And again, it wasn't something, I wasn't trying to be cute, or it felt like, okay, I want to step into this new self, or I want to step back into this self. And it worked. And as my name dictates, every Purim as a kid, until kind of I didn't want to look dorky, I was Queen Esther. But that was for real. Like, my mom made me a long wand made out of foil. It was a thing, crown. And I wasn't twirling around like a girly girl bride. It's not me, like, at all. I'm not a Disney princess, nothing. But that felt right. And I know how that sounds, okay? But hear me out. So there's a story of a couple who goes to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was a holy, holy man. And they said, help me name our future baby. And he kind of looked at them and said, well, it's the one time in your life you have that Ruach HaKodesh, that extra spirit of wisdom, of a message from someplace else. And that's when a parent names a child. Do you want to give that power up to me, or do you want to use it? And yeah, like, our names mean something, and our parents do have an insight, whether they're aware of that or not. And even with my kids, like, I'll go into one name specifically. My youngest, his name is Uriel Abraham. I love the name. I spoke about it with my sister before. She was like, Uriel is such a pretty name. I'm like, yeah, I love that name. And then Abraham, because he's my favorite character. I love Abraham, the ancient stories. I always connected to him as a kid and as an adult. So Uriel Abraham, it's the day before his Brit Milah, when you officially name your child. And this man was learning the Zohar, and he said, oh, you picked the name because of the Zohar. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, well, it says that the night your son was born, which was a Saturday night right after the whole flood ends, okay? And he was born right before Lech Lecha, the Parsha of Avraham. And it says the light of God, Uriel, the light of God, came into the world with the birth of Avraham. And I was like, oh my goodness, okay, it's official. And it's humbling. It's humbling when you think something's your idea and you realize you were just overwhelmed by something else. And I think it helps with surrendering in the future too, to this sort of higher power and the higher knowledge. And in general, all my kids really do match their names in ways I wasn't aware of at the moment. So when I go back to my essence, which partly is the name, it could partly be I don't know, maybe my, I don't know, astrological sign, maybe my personality, maybe a previous life, whatever it is, the more I dig into who I am on the inside and go inward, I think that's what tshuva really means. Tshuva might mean return. I mean, by the root word, tshuva is lashuv, to return. Repentance is a whole foreign idea that we get from other cultures. It's not about confession necessarily. Yeah, part of returning is admitting or saying what you want to change or what you regret or where you want to be. But it's in sort of the spirit of being more myself in a more balanced way, a more refined way, a more mature way, digging in, digging in, digging in. And by the way, Esther, the word Esther means hidden. And Malka is the queen, like the queen that is hidden, whatever that means. Okay. But my most natural mode of being connected is through something regal. Stay with me. Okay. We all want to connect to a higher power, a higher destiny, to Hashem, however you want to phrase it. And we're all going to do it in very unique ways. For some people, it's nature. For some people, it's the relationships they're in. For some people, it's quiet time. For some people, it's architecture. We're all somewhere else. But I know mine is in feeling Hashem's love in the face of vastness, in the face of this regal, endless kingdom that is God. So to me, it could be when I'm snorkeling and I see zillions of colorful fish or a sunset. Those are nature, but it could be a piece of music, something I studied, whatever makes me sort of catch my breath and realize I am sort of the speck of dust. Like I get this feeling a lot of times when I look at the stars. It's almost frightening. That's my connected place. It's the royalty of everything. It's how great we are and how fortunate little me, tiny brained me, just a bunch of atoms get to walk this planet. And if I could share that, okay, like again, when I was a kid, I would play school all the time. I had roll books. I had my friends' names written like as a kid. And I just grew up, threw that stuff away, stopped paying attention to it. And guess what? I love teaching. I'm a teacher today. All of that little girl energy, if you pay attention, so many answers are there. The child I once was, the woman I want to grow into, that elderly woman waiting for me at the end. Like those are things I want to feel at the moment. And I want to get from both of those spectrums and find out where I am and who I am. It's not obvious, yet it's all the answers are on the inside. So now I teach and I get to connect people to that feeling. And by the way, the people who like what I'm teaching are usually on my rhythm. And the people who are just like scratching their heads, like enough of this, they are not. That's not because they don't like me or because I'm doing something wrong. They need to connect in a very, very different way. And I think that helps us select what books we read, what lessons we attend, what really resonates with us and what we need to push away. And I don't mean pushing away out of defensiveness. I mean pushing away because it's really not healthy for us to hear. Those are things that have a lot to do with self-knowledge, okay? So my inherent message here about Purim, there's a lot, but I really do connect to the essence of the day, the message of the day. To me, Purim is finding the divinity throughout the course of history. The events that we say are miraculous, it's usually because you have a bird's eye view. Like if you zoom out, yeah, you can see the whole Megillah story from front to back. But if you were living in those days, it was spread out over years. There were parts that were disastrous, confusing, celebratory. But when time passes and you get to look back, you get to see sort of this full picture view. I see it today. I see it living in Israel. I'll be honest with you. You know, when I was a kid, we'd be learning about sort of this like end of days, and it sounded almost like a Bermuda Triangle fantasy world. When in reality, when they said things like Jews from the four corners of the earth would come home to Israel, I was like, where are they? Like, what are we talking about here? And I'm living through it. You know, I'm part of that story. We're resettling the land. What did people in the 1600s feel when they said they're going to resettle a land that was described as barren? Mark Twain said there's nothing growing here. And yet I am living amongst palm trees, orange groves. It's like I feel like I'm living through my own or our own collective Purim story. I love revealing the truth behind the illusion. And I think Purim, you have one leg in a very physical world. Again, food, maybe there's music. You're bringing baskets to people, friendship, alcohol. On the other hand, there's like this whole spirit world. And in fact, aren't they the same thing? You know, the wine and the costumes, it has something in common. You're leaving your everyday concrete self. You're leaving your control of the future. And what happens when you release? And for some people, that has to be getting drunk. And for other people, it's getting lost in their free love for other people or getting lost behind the costume. Okay, so costume. When I'm in costume, my regular face is hidden. Is my regular face most authentic self? I don't mean face like my nose and my eyes. I mean the identity, the persona I'm putting out there. When I cover that persona and give something else that one time a year, is that thing I'm giving my truer self? Or is it like a parallel expression of who I am? Do I get a break from my egoic self and just stop caring for that day and be someone completely different? And maybe that's more authentic. I don't know. Or maybe that's at least authentic for the moment that we're in. It's letting go of control for a day within reason. Okay, within reason. There's no sloppiness in my house. Let me just say, we don't do Purim that way, but there's definitely a giddiness. And I have to add, Purim is my husband's least favorite day of the year. So really we're the yin and yang here, which I think is very, very helpful. Like very helpful because you've got some sort of Grinchy kind of like energy near you. Yeah, everything gets tempered a bit. I really do appreciate that. Not only Purim, but the same root word of Purim is Yom Kippur. And that's a day where you're also leaving your regular realm. We are not expected and we're not supposed to be fasting all the time. And we're not supposed to be in this angelic sphere of wearing white or not speaking or being in prayer all day. That's the job of the monk. That's not us. And yet one day a year, we leave our regular life to go into a holier realm. I feel that way on Purim. I know it doesn't look like it, but that's kind of the place I aspire to be on Purim. And yeah, prayer, fun. I love the music. I love hosting the people I choose. I am not running around with chicken without a head, running in my car, traffic, delivering baskets to random teachers. That's not how I'm doing it. And no one told me I had to do it that way. There are actual like halachic precedents as to how we celebrate Purim. And if you're within those lines, there's a whole lot of wiggle room how you do it. And I like to do it this way, where I host the people I really care about or the people who really need it. People ring the bell asking for money. Like everything is light with a smile, chill. And with that comes some heavy truths. Truths about Amalek, truths about the situation we're in, truths about seeing through the curtains to behind, to the backstage, to the full circle of everything. I love that. Okay, let's get into Snow White. All right, let's go back to my childhood. This is not Disney World Snow White. It's Grimm. It's the Brothers Grimm. It's different. Carl Jung has a field day with it. But the only way I could really be here in the Snow White energy is because I feel more healed of some of my trauma than I've ever felt before. And I know trauma can get real bad when you look at the spectrum. I am not talking about, God forbid, being assaulted or homelessness or physical abuse, and if any of you guys are listening and you've had those experiences, this is not me trying to pretend to be there, but maybe you can vibe with this and maybe we can like have this open discussion. And if you're someone who skated by without any trauma, look, I don't think anyone leaves this world without a few, some gut punches, right? So all of us could relate wherever we are. But to me, this is my trauma for what it's worth. Okay. And I've never felt closer to healthiness. And I don't think we ever heal completely, but we get closer and closer. And this is where I'm at now. And that's why I can come in full Snow White costume. Okay. So this is how it starts for me. Basically, I was in the airport last year, right after my son took a really traumatic fall, like really a bad fall. I mean that literally, from a cliff. And I was in the States for a wedding and I was around all that stuff, all that childhood stuff. And I passed by the airport and there was a Disney store. I walked in with my kids, grabbed the Snow White keychain, smiled to myself and walked away. And my kids looked at me and I was like, don't even ask. And again, I'm not a Disney girl, okay? I'm not a princess girl. It made me smile. I think stories that last the test of time have a universal spirit in it because those stories are true. They're true for people in very different ways. As the saying goes, history doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So these stories will resonate. Cain and Abel, sibling rivalry, murder, those themes will keep coming up all the time. So whether you believe these stories are true or not, the lessons are as true as it gets. The themes are true in every generation. And if the Snow White thing meant something to me, it means that there's a part of me that maybe was wrapped up there, but there were other people who it mattered to also. Otherwise, that story wouldn't be alive today. And it made me feel less alone, for sure, in this. And also kind of like, it was fun. It was a way to make it a bit lighter. And I like that. And I attached it to my wallet and Snow White's sort of like hanging by. My dad saw it. He just started laughing. It's like, okay, what are you going to do? So Jung has a bunch of studies about this. And one of the things that he mentions is in these fairy tales, the father's always killed off, but maybe they're not really dead. Maybe they've lost their voice. Maybe they're powerless in the face of a stronger energy, or maybe they chose not to protect their daughter. Whatever it is, there was this loss of this masculine power, and the feminine power sort of like dwarfs itself into something really ominous and scary. Whatever you want to make of it, it's sort of my story, and I want to tread carefully. But even this Prince Charming thing, the man I married, like, there's no perfection there. There's no happy ending in terms of perfection, but there is a happy ending if you're willing to let things be messy and vibrant and robust, like a healthy relationship. I felt like I was woken up from that poison apple-induced coma. And what I mean is I felt like I was underwater until I felt the unconditional love. But even when we started like really connecting as we're dating, I felt like it was safe for me to find out who I really am. And what I mean by that is a part of me was sort of like kicked to the corner, or I did it to myself. I pushed down a lot of my own preferences and voices and complaints so things would just be peaceful, because I was trying to survive, literally treading water with like my face out of the water. That's what it felt like. And it was exhausting. And I couldn't give myself the luxury of being bratty like some girls near me, because everything was such a mess on my home life. I needed school and friendship to be the place where it was just okay. So if I had to give in over and over and over again, or not mention where I'd rather go eat, or not participate in complaining, or whatever it wasn't because I didn't have a voice. It's because that voice was so quieted down for the sake of peace that slowly that voice almost disappeared. And when someone took a liking to me, I was always surprised. Like, I was trying to be invisible. And when someone found me and liked me, a teacher, a friendship, someone pursued it, I was kind of like, okay, like, is it safe for me to turn the volume up of who I am? And finally, and it was at times, but finally, in the fullest expression, it's been through this love that I am blessed with. And now I get it back from my kids, and it's like, it makes me emotional, but it's more than I could have dreamed for. And I look to God with gratitude. I really do, because the volume of my true self is it gets louder every year. And I think the world benefits from all of our truest selves completing the puzzle that is this universe. And if we quiet ourselves down because we feel either sometimes it's unworthiness, or we forgot who we are, or we don't want to mess things up, like, okay, there's a balance, right? We don't want to be obnoxious and burn bridges. But on the same token, there's this balance of really growing into yourself and do no harm at the same time, or less harm. So I mentioned, like, I'm able to own this now because I feel the most healed. How do I know? How do you know when you're really on that trajectory, that you really feel like, oh, I'm in a good place right now? For me, it's really just being in tune with my body. And when I hear specific people's names, or I know a date is coming up where we're going to all be together, and my heart rate doesn't speed up dramatically, that means something to me. Or if my stomach is not doing flip-flops and I'm not like obsessing in that loop, I know that my truest expression, which I do think is the body, like, pay attention, as they say, she keeps score, right? If I feel that we're kind of calm, not perfectly, nothing's perfect, nothing is 100%, but then I feel like my emotions and my mind were on the same level. And I don't think that the emotions can listen to logic, and vice versa. If someone near you is having a panic attack, would you look at them and say, you're fine, chill, look, you're good? Or would you hold their hand, which is emotion? Would they be breathing? Would they need a distraction? Like, would you speak to them where they were at, or would you be speaking at them? And I think we got to pay attention to ourselves. If there's a child inside of you trembling with fear, or triggered, or in place of panic, or even less, just a flutter of something, pay attention. Don't talk at it and don't push it away. It needs to be expressed, and it can't be rushed. If you would have told me 20 years ago, like, all right, you're good, you got a family, you live on the other side of the planet. No, I needed year after year, experience after experience, lesson after lesson, to know and to feel and to go on this road at my own pace, at my own time. Okay, so that's one way I felt like we're we're getting there, you know? Here's another thing that happened. So this one human being was in a place where they were being humiliated publicly, like a small amount of people, but people that matter. And I reached out and I grabbed this person's hand and I said, I want you here. Stay. I want you here. And I was shocked. And it's not that I was being disingenuous, but I don't know that I really felt, I don't know. I was so surprised by my words and they came out so confidently. I lost some street cred. Okay. People around me looked at me like, what? You know? But yeah, from the moment those words came out, to me, it meant I wasn't bitter, angry, hurt at the moment. I wasn't a child at the moment. I was full enough to be there for this person genuinely, with boundaries, but genuinely, because something got let go. And so my words taught me something about me. And that was pretty cool. And again, it was at its own time. And from that moment on, slowly, something starts to grow. So in the past, there were three ways I knew how to deal with this sort of trauma. Number one, stay away. For 7 years almost, I did. I really did. And that's what I needed. And that was healing. And fine, so be it. I was able to. My life afforded me the option to bow out of different vacations. Like, fine. Then comes a time when, okay, it's time for us to be able to join the conversation. And there would be outbursts or confrontations. And those are painful and sometimes they're necessary. Sometimes you pass that stage. And for a while now, my way was comedy. It was laughing. It was giving people side eye when things were getting insane and out of hand and just starting to laugh. Or say something in public that only maybe 2 people would get and we just start rolling. Or rehashing insanity and conversations and cracking up and remembering childhood memories and rolling on the floor crying. And by the way, laughter is sometimes the best medicine. But sometimes there's an even more refined way, and maybe the Band-Aid isn't necessary. Maybe there's another way for me to do it. So my oldest is such a great influence on our home, on myself. And he always has a book, like a Jewish book about character refinement, working on your faith, being someone that people can trust, like all of these books. And I borrowed one of his on the Chafetz Chaim, who's famous for guarding your tongue, Shmirat HaLashon, and actually rules about gossip. I'm not a huge gossip. I don't run around. I don't enjoy like speaking like ill about other people. But on the other hand, when it came to this specific topic, that's the way I dealt with it. And it wasn't gossip, but yeah, I guess you can call that gossip. I guess so. It definitely wasn't the best way to bond. Trauma bonding and making people feel like I got your back so they could feel safe with me and I'm loyal and I'm on your side. All of that stuff. Yeah, it has a shelf life. It's great to a point, and then it's time to move on. And again, I couldn't rush that. I didn't even know to rush that. I didn't even know that that was the next stop. But I wasn't really ready to learn this stuff because I knew I'd fail. And even now, by the way, I do anticipate some failure and messiness and apology like tours. I do, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to start. That doesn't mean that I'm not ready. I feel ready. And when you take on new behavior, I think something else dies. Are you ready for that too? A persona might die. I might not be the fun entertainment of that conversation. I might be boring. Or I might appear to be less loyal. I don't know, but I'm going to be loyal to myself. And it comes from a place that I really want myself to be someone I trust. You know, I want to be someone I look up to, if that makes sense. Integrity is expensive. I know people with integrity and they invested a lot of time and effort to be that person. And I really want that for me. I really do. And I think that's the truest tshuva moment I've had in a long time. Everything that I'm doing is me going back into my skin. And I really encourage you guys. Like, maybe it's like hypnotherapy or meditation or self-discovery or therapy, whatever, not to be rushed, but for us to just be on that path, you know, just to be on that funny escalator and you keep stumbling and coming back up, but to be in the game and being willing to let something die in the process. To me, again, that's tshuva. And I want to go more bird's eye view. I want to zoom out a little and talk about this whole Purim thing. It's not just Esther Hamalka that I'm vibing with. It's the whole spirit of the day. It's that whole hiddenness. Like, where is God in the story? You know, it's so similar to what we have today. And it's like, again, looking through the curtains and finding out the real player, the real puppeteer. And God's name is only coded when it says like Hamelech, the king. You might think it's mentioning Ahasuerus, the king of the story, but maybe when it says the king, it's actually God. And it's all these sort of codes. Mordecai and Esther. Is he her adopted father, her uncle, like it says? Or were they actually together in love as husband and wife, and it was being censored, and Mordecai would be assassinated had that been true, as Esther becomes the royal queen. And she ends up just there, and she never says her name. And the word Esther itself is a hidden name. It was a Persian name. I think the name was Haster, a goddess, and her Hebrew name, Hadassah, is hidden. Her identity is hidden until it can't be anymore. And Haman wants to kill us, and he hides it behind his intent to help the king, when really this is old school Amalek, recognizable Nazi Jew hatred. We know this thing, and it comes in every generation. Again, a universal story. By the way, the Jewish people themselves, they must have been asking themselves, who are we now? Because when the scene opens up, it's really the first generation that has no temple, tabernacle, no homeland. They're on foreign soil for the first time. The first temple was destroyed. Mordecai's from that previous generation, okay? But the youth isn't. And they're faced with options. Assimilation. By the way, the party, it was like hedonistic pleasure. It was kosher food. Like, you could really make a good case for how that party was on the up and up. And yet Mordecai said, don't go. And it even hints to it in the Megillah, B'kelim shonim, and it's sung in a very mournful Eicha kind of tune, because those were the kelim, the vessels of the temple that was plundered and destroyed by Babylonia. Everything is hidden, and everything is the gray scale, the place that we really do find ourselves. And it begs for questions, and it begs for a full stop and to reanalyze who we are. And those decisions that were made by the Jews then, those echo and resonate for the past 2,000 years. You know, that's us living abroad. How do we do it? What are we loyal to? What's our real identity? And at the end of the story, Mordecai is beloved by most, Rov Echav, most of his people. He wasn't the hero for everyone. None of us will be the hero of everyone. And if you were, I'd be concerned. Like, how authentic are you really? There's got to be some people who disapprove of good behavior, and those people exist. I mean, look at us as a nation. We're way hated, and we're in the right. Usually we're in the right, especially in the story that we're living through right now. It's so glaringly obvious, the good and bad. But when you zoom out again, it's all one. And what I mean is, if you're drinking enough, like it says, that you forget who Haman and Mordecai really are. In other words, the ultimate good and the ultimate bad almost get confused. It's not that we're confused about virtue or we're confused about the good guys and the bad guys, but it means you zoom out so much that it's all from the same source. And that source is for the goodness of the world and the goodness of our souls and the whole project we're in. And sometimes, not always, are we meant to always zoom out at all. Like, sometimes it's time to pick a side. But if you can do that in a place of inner peace and you can fight for your life, but again, on the inside, you are right within, that's, to me, like, again, that's stability, that's integrity, that's someone I want to be around. Everyone will connect to Judaism or their faith, holidays, and family in their unique way. And I wanted to give you a taste of what all of it meant to me. Again, I'm not driving around, I'm not stressing that day. I'm feeding people, I'm giving to neighbors, strangers, family, friends, letting go with ease and not with force, and seeing the divine hand in a situation. To me, it's just that surrender is my Purim, it's my Yom Kippur, and it's who I hope to sort of, again, grow into, my truest self. So happy Purim to you. If you celebrate, do it your way. If you don't celebrate, try it out. It's, I believe, in the middle of the Hebrew month of Adar in March. It's in your calendars. And do it your way. Send your feedback, because if you like what you're hearing, I would love for you to spread the message, to like and subscribe, and for us to all be on this journey of growth in whatever shape or form together. Thank you guys. Happy Purim.